We are on chapter 11 of Untitled Chapter. In fact, we're going to learn chapters 11 and 12 in Hashem tonight. But just to recap where we're coming from, we've been talking about essence. The soul level, which is not a level, that corresponds to the essence, or is the essence of the soul, is called yechidah. And we were saying how there are four levels of Torah interpretation: pshat, remez, drush, sod, and they correspond to four levels of the soul: nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya. And then chasidus is a different category altogether, which corresponds to yechidah. And just as yechidah is the essence of the soul, it's not any one of the four manifestations or parts. So to chasidus is sort of like the essence of Torah. And the way we're going to illustrate that is we're going to show you how it's different than pshat, remez, drush, sod, the four levels of Torah interpretation. And then also, though, not only is it, because that, remember we're saying about etzem, that it's distinct from everything, but yet it's in everything. That paradox of the oil. We used the metaphor we used to bring that out. That paradoxical property of essence, we brought it out with the idea of oil. It's not in any particular part of the olive, but it's in the entire olive. So we're bringing out how chasidus is different from the other four interpretations, and yet how it plugs into and then illuminates and brings to life all the other four interpretations. So we did pshat, remez, drush, sod last week, and now we're on chasidus. So tonight we're going to do chasidus of Maidani. Remember, we took Maidani as our case study. So we did the four levels of Maidani. Now we're going to do Maidani according to chasidus. And then, that's chapter 11. And then chapter 12, we're going to plug chasidus back into the pshat. And then we'll go, not tonight, but in Hashem in following weeks, we'll plug chasidus into the remez, and plug chasidus into the drush, and plug chasidus into the sod. Okay, so let's go ahead. Chapter 11. Habiran al Shalpi dalu chelke pshat remez drush sod nefshuch neshama chaya shebetayra. The explanations of Maidani that we gave according to the four levels of Torah interpretation, which correspond to the four levels of the soul. Mevorin yonim pratim be'erech haklal godol shebezeh be'hahoidah de Maidani. Each one of them explains some different aspect of the general principle of the gratitude of Maidani. So each one of them is hitting a different aspect. Then comes chasidus, which is the yechidah of Torah. It gives a general explanation. It explains the essential point, which is in Maidani, which comes from the yechidah of the person. Okay. What does that mean? How do we explain that? We're going to illustrate it. We're going to demonstrate it. So here we go. You ready? Here's the explanation of Maidani according to chasidus, and you're going to see how it's different than the other four levels, and how it's not an aspect of the gratitude of Maidani. It is capturing something essential, or the essence of the gratitude of Maidani. Here we go. Habir al pi teres chasidus al Maidani chuluhu. The explanation of Maidani according to chasidus is Haschalasi shel seder hayom hu b'Maidani. The beginning of the day is Maidani. It's the first thing you do when you are beginning to gain consciousness. She'emin meisei kedem netilas yadayim. In fact, we say it, as mentioned earlier, we say it before we even wash our hands. Afilu biyadayim tameas. In other words, even with impure hands. If we've been sleeping, we have impure hands, and we're saying Maidani even before we wash that impurity away. How is this possible that we recite a prayer with impure hands? There's no other prayer you recite with impure hands. Lefi shekol hatume sheba'elam einon metames es haMaidani shel Yehudi. Because all the impurities in the world cannot defile the Maidani of a Jew. It is uncorruptible. It's possible that a Jew may be lacking in one area or in another. But his Maidani, his simple gratitude to Hashem, Nisher Tamid B'Shleimos, always remains perfect. It's interesting. This teaching is a teaching of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, which is in Sefer Hayom Yom. The Rebbe wrote a Sefer Hayom Yom, which is daily thoughts, according to the dates of the Jewish year. So, what date is this Hayom Yom? Der Seder von Tag hebt sich an mit Modeh Ani. Und das sagt man fahr Nägelwasser, a viele bi Yadayim Tameas. Warum kol atomische Be'elam seinen nit mit Tame dem Modeh Ani von den Jiden. Kann sein a chaser bezeh oi bezeh, aber der Modeh Ani bleibt ganz. I just said the same thing in Yiddish, because this entry in Hayom Yom is in Yiddish. What date is it? You want to know the date? Yud Aleph Shvat. You know what's interesting about Yud Aleph Shvat? And I'm not saying this on any authority. This is just my observation. Yud Aleph Shvat is the first day of the Rebbe's Nesius, right? Because the previous Rebbe was Nistalik Yud Shvat. The Rebbe accepted the Nesius at the following year on the Yortzeit at the Yud Shvat Verbringen. And the first day of the Rebbe's Nesius was Yud Aleph Shvat. So just like Modeh Ani is the beginning of each day, Modeh Ani is the beginning of the Rebbe's Nesius. Now, Hayom Yom was written for Tafshin Gimel, for 1943. So, what I'm describing is something that occurred, well, the Frierdiker Rebbe's Histalkus was in 1950, and the Rebbe's acceptance of the leadership was in 1951. So obviously, according to, regular, what we call Das Tachtoin, regular knowledge, the Rebbe couldn't have known that Yud Aleph Shvat had that significance, unless the Rebbe had other ways of knowing. But again, that's not my business. The point is, it's just interesting, and everything is Hashgacha Pratis, right? Everything is designed by Hashem. So Hashem surely knew the significance of this date. And it's interesting that Yud Aleph Shvat is the entry about the Modeh Ani, the purity of the Modeh Ani, and that's the first day of the Rebbe's leadership. And really, again, I'm not saying this on any authority, but just my feelings, if you could really sum up what is the Rebbe's leadership all about, it's about the unshakable belief in the uncorruptibility of every single Jew, no matter where he or she may be found, in whatever situation he or she may be struggling in. There is the full force of the Jewish soul within them. And that's the message of Modeh Ani, and that's the Hayom Yom for Yud Aleph Shvat. Okay, again, I'm saying this not on any authority. This is just my feeling. I mean, it's a fact that it's the Maidani is the Hayom Yom for Yud Aleph Shvat, but the significance to which I am ascribing that coincidence is purely mine. Okay, so let's continue here. The inyan zehu mitzad yechidah dafke. This idea of the soul being uncorruptible, that's really speaking about yechidah. Bedalad bechinas nefesh ruch neshama chaye. On the four levels of nefesh, ruch, neshama, and chaye, shaykh in yenabagam, oigam tumachulu. There can be a blemish. There can be impurity. Of course, you could damage your soul. God forbid. But when you talk about the essence of the soul, which is constantly, intrinsically one with Hashem, that's what that word yechidah means. It means yachid, one, united. It's not possible that any blemish or impurity could occur, and it always remains perfect and whole. So, the explanation that Modeh Ani is this pure, not just it's pure, but it is the expression that is incapable of becoming impure. What's that talking about? That's talking about yechidah nefesh. And now another observation connected to this point, and this is still the chasidus explanation of Modeh Ani, but an additional ancillary point to that point in parentheses. That's why, on a deeper level, none of the 7 names which you're not allowed halachically to erase, names of Hashem, are mentioned in Modeh Ani. Now, the simple reason we said already, according to pshat, is because we're not allowed yet to say Hashem's name because we haven't washed our hands. But the tama pnimi, the inner reason, is because there's a very beautiful idea here. Since Maidani is an expression of the essence of the soul, etzem neshama, the level of Hashem that we're speaking about here is not a level, but the essence, and therefore cannot be captured by a name. To use the wording of the Zohar, itfis b'shem, it can't be grasped by a name. Each and every divine name describes another aspect or manifestation or expression of godliness. And then, when you're talking about the essence of Hashem, there is no name that can contain it. There's no vessel for it. So we just use a pronoun. Like when Hashem spoke, Anoichi, I am Hashem, Alekecha, who took you out of Egypt, right? That's the first of the 10 commandments. Anoichi, I am. Anoichi, I am who I am, right? So here too, we don't use any of the shemais because we're talking from the essence to the essence. We're speaking to Hashem's essence, which can't be captured by any divine name. Maidani lefanecha. Lefanecha is just before you. Now, why is that specifically the explanation that chasidus offers? Simple. The 4 levels of Torah interpretation, which correspond to the 4 levels of the soul, none of those 4 levels, even Soid, do not talk about essence to the extent that we find in the Zohar. Even though it is the highest of the 4 levels, and you would think that it would cover this topic, it counts or it enumerates the levels of the soul, and it only mentions nefesh, ruach, neshama, uneshama lineshama. It doesn't say yechidah, bechinas yechidah, ein nimnis. It doesn't count yechidah. Because it's included in that terminology, neshama lin neshama. Neshama lin neshama is chaya, and then included in that, in a sort of hinting way, is yechidah. But it doesn't mention yechidah anywhere explicitly when it's enumerating the names of the soul. Remember, we said that the Medrash has 5 names for the soul. Nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, yechidah. The name yechidah comes from Medrash, but in Zohar it doesn't enumerate yechidah specifically. I mean, the truth is, in other places in Zohar it does, but. And the Rebbe explains that in a ha'ara here, in a footnote. But when it's enumerating the levels of the soul, it doesn't count yechidah. And the Rebbe is making a point here that because Soid is still one of the 4 levels, and 4 levels is nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya. It doesn't go to yechidah. Aval b'chasidus yechidah shebetayra mevur baruch inyan shel yechidah. But chasidus, which is yechidah, speaks all the time about yechidah, and at length. Case in point, this entire discourse is all about yechidah. Let's continue. And since the yechidah is the essence of all the 4 levels of the soul, so therefore the chassidish explanation of Modeh Ani, which is the yechidah of Modeh Ani, so chasidus is going to illuminate all the 4 specific levels of Torah interpretation, which they only explain the various details or aspects or qualities of Modeh Ani, as will now be explained. So we just learned the explanation of Modeh Ani according to chasidus, which is, just to recap, that Modeh Ani is the expression of the essence of the soul, which cannot be defiled. That's why we make that proclamation before we've even washed our hands, because we don't even need to wash our hands, because nothing can defile the Modeh Ani of a Jew. Correspondingly, when we're speaking to Hashem from our essence, we're speaking to Hashem's essence, so it's not even describable by any of Hashem's names. It's just the pronoun you. Thank you. I acknowledge you for giving back my soul. Okay, let's continue with chapter 12, shall we? What are we going to do here in chapter 12? We're going to go back to the pshat, and we're going to plug chasidus into the pshat. And just so you remember, what was the pshat of Maidani? The pshat of Maidani is we needed to formulate some type of a prayer that we can say under the conditions that we're in when we wake up, meaning we have impure hands. So if we want to really later, we're going to say Elokai Neshama, but we can't do it yet. But we needed to say it right away because you're supposed to give thanks immediately when you get benefit. So we formulated this Maidani to express gratitude under those conditions. But the point is gratitude. We're thanking Hashem for giving back the soul. Okay, that's the pshat. Thank you, Hashem. All right. Yud beis. Hachayus chasidus machnis bechelak pshat sheb'Maidani. Now, chasidus, what does it illuminate about the idea, the pshat level of Maidani, that Maidani is thanking Hashem for giving back your soul? Who? Hadgasha b'pirush nishmasi, neshama shali. Chasidus is going to zero in on the word nishmasi, my soul. Not just you gave me back a soul. What does that mean? Alachzaris, Neshama, Nishmas, Yehudi. The whole gratitude is thanking Hashem that He gave you back your Jewish soul. What does that mean, your Jewish soul? V'ilu hoyu machzirim loy neshama, aval acheres denachri ve'eved, af shegam oz hoyu yetzi miklal echad meshishim b'misa l'chayim. If Hashem would merely give you back another soul, what does that mean, another soul? A soul that would get your body up and running, meaning it would return you from the 60th of death that sleep is. So you would be alive again, but you wouldn't have back your unique Jewish spirituality. You wouldn't have the same gratitude. The gratitude is not just that I'm alive physically. The gratitude is I have a Jewish soul, which means this special connection as a Jew. Ki mitzad ha'aras yechidah. Because from the perspective of yechidah, nirgish etzlei, the person feels shechayim heim, that what is the definition of life? Chaim Yehudim dafke. Not just physical life, but a Jewish life. Chayos shel odem atim kriim odem, asher ruach b'nei ha'odem ho'ele hi lamayle, v'chayim b'sorim b'fnei atzm chayos shel behema, Amadei melchamer oy nikra chamer asher ruach behema yeredes hi lamata be'erkei einem chayim v'hu ein loy lahaydos al zeh. If I were given back any other energy that would also enliven me and get me up in the morning, that would be like, comparatively, relatively speaking, an animal's soul. Now you're going to say, what? He's saying if it's not a Jewish soul, it's an animal's soul? In just a minute, he makes it very clear that if you were given back a non-Jewish soul, that's a human soul. But we don't want just a human soul. We want our uniquely Jewish soul, which is our Jewish connection to Hashem. So it's not enough just to be alive again, physically alive. The soul can't just be a vitality that makes me alive. The soul also means my special Jewish connection to Hashem, which is, for me as a Jew, or at least from my yechidah's perspective, synonymous with life itself. Let's continue. Look, even just physical life, having that energy called a soul, which enlivens your body, it's a pretty impressive thing. Especially shalmina medaber, a human soul, right? So even if you got back, he's saying, a non-Jewish soul, it's still a human soul. A human soul is a pretty big deal, right? And nevertheless, even though it's a pretty big deal, very big deal, every Jew is like a prince. The way a prince defines life is a relationship with his father, the king. But if you take the prince out of the palace and you put him in a pen, Not only he won't enjoy such a life, he will be disgusted with such a life. So the point is, I'm not just saying, oh, thank you for waking me up. Because the truth is, you could have woken my 60th of death state of slumber with giving me back any human energy that would, do that job. No, I'm thankful that you woke me up again and put my Jewish soul within me so I could have my uniquely Jewish relationship with you and live another day Jewishly. And here, the Rebbe is going to talk about a famous story about a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, of the chassid of the Balatanya. Ki yadua sipur me'achassid Rebbe Yekusiel Lepler. It's known, there's a story about the chassid Rebbe Yekusiel Lepler. Kisharatza Admar Azakin Levorche Barichas Yamim, the Alter Rebbe wanted to give him a blessing for a long life. Amar, he told him in Yiddish, aber nit mit peyerish yoren. Lo chai ikor. Don't give me peasant years. What does that mean, peasant years? Was einaim lahem v'lo yiru, os naim lahem v'lo yishmu. Men zet nit kein Gettlichkeit, and men hert nit kein Gettlichkeit. Shein royim v'shemim elokus. Don't give me peasant years means don't just give me life if it's going to be physical life, where I won't see and hear godliness. Life can't just be physical life. It has to be a life of appreciating godliness. So the Rebbe asks a question. V'l'cha'ira tamua. Seemingly, this is wondrous. When you give somebody a present, especially a big present, like long life, you don't respond and say, I'll only take your present if you'll give more. If I say, I want to give you $1,000. No. Only if you give me $2,000. Nobody does that. Now life is a big present. And like we mentioned before, that when Hashem gives you back your life, you want to thank him for that benefit right away, just like you would thank Hashem for any benefit right away. And how much more so the benefit of being alive, because that is the benefit which includes all benefits. So, and that's even just being alive without a uniquely Jewish life, but just being physically alive. So why would you haggle? You don't haggle when someone's giving you a gift. How was Rabbi Yekusiel seemingly like haggling with the Alter Rebbe? He's giving you a gift and you're telling him, no, you have to give me more. But here's the explanation. It wasn't that Rabbi Yekusiel was saying, oh, you want to give me $1,000? No, you have to give me $2,000. That would not make sense. Rather, he was confirming what the $1,000 were. Is it $1,000 or 1,000 pesos? He wasn't haggling on the price. He was confirming what the currency was. He was making sure, when you're giving me long life, do you mean just life? That my body will be awake, that I'll be walking around, that I'll be drawing breath? That's not enough. I want to make sure when you're saying long life, you mean life as a Jew. Ki hoya munach abgelegt that slave. Bepashtus shekol mitzias achayas huriyas ushmiyas alakus. For Rabbi Yekusiel, it was very clear. Life has to mean that you're sensitive to godliness. V'lochin hisno aber nit mit peyerish hayorim. That's why I said not peasant years. Ki yam v'shonim shein royim v'shem alakus lo hoyu nichshav metzli mitzias klal. He told him, life that's just physical life, that's nothing to me. Not only would I not appreciate it, I would be disgusted by such life. I would despise such life. That is not life. Just being alive. Now, this is a radical concept here. Life, just the fact that your body is able to walk around, we can't create life. Life is an amazing gift. And yet, even that, from the perspective of yechidah, is like, no, that's not a gift. I don't appreciate just being alive. When I talk about life to me doesn't just mean the fact that I'm able to, my body is animated and I can walk around. Or even, that would only be the level of nefesh, by the way. Or even that I can feel deep feelings, that would be ruach. Or even that I can think deep thoughts, who's a Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. Someone came to Descartes, he was at a fancy restaurant, and the waiter said, sir, would you like dessert? And he said, I think not. And he disappeared. anyways, or even chaya, which means spirituality and the ability to, have religious devotion, to want something greater than just regular life. But even that's not enough. That's not enough. It has to be yechidah. It has to be that essence of myself, which is one with the essence of Hashem. And if that's not life, then it's nothing. From a perspective of nefesh, that makes no sense. Meaning, a nefesh wouldn't say that. A nefesh wouldn't say life without God isn't life. Ruach wouldn't say that. Neshama wouldn't say that. Chaya wouldn't even say that. Only yechidah would say that. Let's read the words inside. This feeling that the only real life is being aware of God, this feeling comes from where? Mitzad giluy yechidah dafke. It only comes from yechidah. Mitzad dalad bechinas nefesh neshama chaya, from the four levels of the soul. Mikevin shmitzu yorim heim be'ez tziur meichen midis chulu. Since each one of them manifests itself in a different way. Nefesh is physical life, and ruach is emotional life, and neshama is intellectual life, and chaya is spiritual life. So harayesh bahem inyan la'atzmam, they each sort of define life as their quality. So as long as I can walk around, nefesh says I'm alive. As long as I can have feelings, ruach says I'm alive. As long as I can think, neshama says I'm alive. As long as I can live for a greater calling than myself, chaya says I'm alive. Now, when they do have godliness, it's like an additional, it's gravy, it's bonus, it's very nice. It's very nice. So you add godliness to your life. That's how they see it. So they have, even on a very subtle level, at least the concept, in theory, of living without God. It's nice when you have God, of course, but if you don't, that's also life. But not from the perspective of yechidah. Yechida's entire being is the idea of being one with God. So for yechidah, there's no allowance for and no significance to anything else but Hashem. So you're telling me, but you're alive. Okay, so you won't be one with Hashem, but you'll be alive. No, that's not called alive. By the way, this is not a joke. Sigmund Freud wrote a book about Jewish jokes, and it's probably the unfunniest book I ever read. Anyways, but there's a joke. Yeah, Freud wrote a book about Jewish humor. There's a joke in there where a guy, a chassan, gets married, and he comes back to the shadchan, and he says, "You just set me up with this girl. You told me that her father died. He didn't die. He's in prison. He's a criminal. He's in prison. And you told me he's not alive." And the shadchan says, "No, you call that living?" Okay. Anyways, I told you, it's the unfunniest book I ever read. No, you call that living? There's another version of that joke, by the way, from the Soviet Union, about the KGB knocks on the door. Does Rabinovich live here? And there's a little guy, answers the door, a little short, bald guy. And the KGB says, "Does Rabinovich live here?" "No, he doesn't live here." 10 minutes later, KGB comes back. "Sir, comrade, does Rabinovich live here?" "No, doesn't live here." 10 more minutes later, the KGB comes back. He's got a picture. He says, "See this picture? This is a picture of Rabinovich. It looks just like you. Why do you keep saying Rabinovich doesn't live here?" The little guy says, "No, this you call living?" Okay. Anyways, the point is, the pshat of Maidani is, thank you, Hashem, for giving me back my soul. Gratitude. Chasidus comes in and says, yeah, what's the gratitude? Nishma, see, my soul. It's not enough that I'm walking around drawing breath. The gratitude that I have, it comes from the essence of my soul, the uncorruptible essence, which I don't even have to wash my hands first before I express it. And it goes directly to Hashem's essence, which can't even be described with one of the divine names. From that perspective, life is my relationship with Hashem. In other words, let me say it very simply. from the level of nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, Hashem can enhance my life. From the perspective of yechidah, Hashem is my life. And when I say Modeh Ani, that's what I'm thanking Hashem for. I'm thanking Hashem for the fact that He and I are one, and He is my life, and there's nothing else but Him. That is life. That is pshat, according to chasidus. All right, Amir Hashem, we will continue next week, and we'll learn remez, according to chasidus.